I'm your host, Locke, and this is the podcast where we drink, smoke, and bullshit about the life of a historic criminal normally. Today, we're going to do things a little bit different, but we'll get into that in a minute. First, let me introduce my guest today. First, with us, we got DC,
What up, doe?
and also with us, we got Tone.
What up?
Like I said, normally we cover historic criminals. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to cover some criminal history. Same thing, we'll just flip it.
I like it.
Well, a lot of times doing research, I find these little odd stories or side things that are related or interesting, but don't necessarily fit into the format of the show. So I figured, well, it's my show. I can do whatever the fuck I want. So we're going to do these little mini episodes or side stories. We'll probably do them every other week because a full-length episode takes a while to get all produced and out anyway. So, maybe mix in some of these every other week. We'll see how it goes first.
I like it.
But one thing we're not going to steer away from, because it's the reason I do the show, is the drinking. So, DC, what are you drinking today?
So I found a new beer store. I was tired of, I had ran out of kind of tall cans that I hadn't had. And I know there's more out there. It's just the stores next to me, I drank them all. And so I found a new beer store and I came across this Sierra Nevada Hop Bullet Double IPA. It's like an 8% beer. It's pretty good. Tastes like an IPA, but it doesn't. It's almost like a IPA mixed with almost not quite a stout, maybe like something else in it, but it's actually pretty delicious.
I think it's crazy. You always drink the high gravity beers and you always drink the tall cans too.
Yes, that's the only way.
Right. Well, I mean, luckily we're all big boys, so we can handle our shit. So.
Exactly. All 260 pounds of me.
All right, Tone, what are you drinking today?
The shoots.
The Schutz.
The shoots.
What is that, German or is that, I wonder?
Sounds like it's German.
Yeah.
I would say somewhere in that
Maybe.
area. But yeah, it's fresh squeeze IPA. Kind of having the same issue. Drank up
tried
all
the
the.
whole stock.
Tried them all. So I'm like, getting a little bored of them. Went to the store a little closer to your house kind of way here and found that and I was like, I haven't had that yet.
How is it?
I like it a lot. I'll definitely be drinking it again.
Nice.
I don't normally drink ciders, but Blake's had this once. They did a cinnamon donut stout that was limited edition. So my wife went out there to grab some of those, and it was all right. But all of them, this is the one I actually like the most. It's a caramel cider, so it tastes like a caramel apple, but in a can that'll get you drunk.
Nice.
And it's Blake's, so it's a local. A lot of people go to Blake's Orchard. You know what I mean? A lot of people go out to Blake's all the time, and then I usually go to Wired's or whatever, but I've been to Blake's and never even realized, like, oh, I could be getting drunk here?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's funny. I haven't been to an apple orchard since I was a kid.
Yeah, me either.
But ciders, this is what's funny. I actually like cider beer. The problem is, at most, I can only drink 2. If I drink more than that, it's like I get my stomach feels weird.
I agree, and I put them down, so that's why I can only do a couple. I need something that I can, pound.
Drink.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. And today we're going to be covering the TRG.
This ain't negotiation time. This is Scarface, final scene, fucking bazookas under each arm. Say hello to my little friend.
Sounds like a race team.
All right, so we got TRG, the Tiny Rascal Gang, sometimes referred to as the Rascals. The Tiny Rascal Gang is a California street gang. Their story begins, like the story of most California street gangs, in Cambodia in 1975.
That's where they all begin.
Every California gang story starts in 1975 Cambodia. So 1975 in Cambodia, that's when Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, they won the Cambodian Civil War. Won't go too into it, but people that will know, like some people have heard of the Khmer Rouge or Pol Pot. He went on to commit the Cambodian genocide. So he killed millions of people, roughly a quarter of the population.
Damn.
Yeah, he was a monster. Well, I mean, you see this baby standing by this pile of skulls.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of sums it up. I mean, what's real crazy, like I said, we won't get into it, but you read like Pol Pot's, like he didn't want people to read books or have jobs. He wanted them all to move out of the cities and move back to the farms, and
it's crazy.
Super intense.
It's crazy how much in modern times the struggles that we do have and we go through and we're like, man, it's the worst it's ever been. And then you hear stories like this, like, we got it pretty good.
Yeah. What is that on the bottom right?
That's the Khmer Rouge flag.
Okay. What is it?
I have no idea. It looks like maybe some fancy building.
Yeah, I kind of see. At
Like
first, I thought it was like some kind of like a couple missiles or something, or maybe even like some kind of Atari spacecraft.
It's that
Sorry.
it's that three-breasted chick from Total Recall.
There you go.
That's what it is. They're big fans of Arnold.
I forgot all about that.
So the Khmer Rouge gets overthrown in 1979, and America gets flooded by Cambodian refugees. Over 100,000, like 160,000 Cambodians fled to America. And the way American does it is what they typically do with refugees is they don't send them all into one area. They kind of split them out. They put them in all the little different neighborhoods, but when you hear the names, it'll like Lowell, Massachusetts, which is, Providence, Rhode Island, all the poor and low income spots. They just stick them in groups.
Right.
But one of the spots that a bunch of them ended up in was Long Beach, California.
LBC.
Many in the community struggled to assimilate due to language barriers, economic issues, and PTSD. They're coming from a war-torn country. Now, gang legend tells that the roots of the Rascals started with a fight between a Latino and a Cambodian youth. That ended up leading to a bunch of the young refugees kind of clicking together for protection. In addition to that, the younger Cambodians were starting to assimilate to Western culture, which is very different from the Cambodian traditional roots that they came over with. So all their parents and grandparents had these like real strict beliefs and behaviors. And you know how kids are. You leave kids anywhere for a year or two, they just become their environment.
Oh yeah. They start seeing all the other kids in their neighborhood doing it. I'm like, the hell? How come I can't do it?
I'm gonna come here and eat and sit on the floor and go to bed early and shit.
I think you got at most 2 generations. So not the ones that originally come over, right? You got their kids. They're probably going to convert a lot of them. But at the very least, the next group, forget about it. They're Americans. They're completely Americanized. They don't know anything about the old country or the old way of doing things.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Fresh Off That Boat show.
Yeah.
That I forgot the dude's name, but he's like a cook and a bunch of other shit in hip hop. But yeah, I think they were second generation, right? I think they were.
What?
Yeah, and he was all into like hip hop. They spoke perfect English.
And you see it right in there. The grandma
Right.
was still those strict traditionalists. The parents were a little bit foot in both worlds.
Yep.
Yeah, the youngest boys wearing Tupac shirts,
Right.
and, Jordans and shit. So a lot of this button heads would lead to a lot of these Cambodian youths. They'd rebel against their parents and just run away and turn to the streets. And between the fact that they're catching flack from outside street gangs and that a lot more of them ended up living in the street, they ended up clicking together. And that started the formation of the Tiny Rascal Gang. So the first thing they did is they adopted Americanized versions of street gang culture. Hand signs, graffitis, colors, the style of dress. A lot of them would shave their heads. They just became an American gang quick.
Named their own gang signs.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to go into a new area, new culture. Everything's fresh for you and not adapt everything from the good to the bad. So listen, if we're going to become a gang, what are we going to do? Walk around with suits on, 3 feet? No, we're going to get some rags, some colors. We're going to put up some gang signs. We're going to tag a few buildings. That's what we do in America.
We're going to do when in Rome, right?
Exactly.
We're going to do what the other gangsters do.
Exactly.
So it looks like they might be around still because those pictures look quite new.
Yes. They chose gray and black as their colors. They adopted local initiation rites, which, being jumped in. Females would have the choice of being jumped in or sexed in, which, as gross as it sounds, is kind of standard street gang protocol.
Yes.
That's usually how it kind of works. At one point, there was an all-female set called the Lady Rascal Gang, but it's now defunct, and all the members were accepted into the TRG.
That's right. 'Cause, you think about it. Some of these gangs, man. Some of the ladies are a little bit more crazy than some of the men.
Yeah.
And, even if they're not putting in all the work, they're still the number one setup people.
Right.
They're involved in everything. Why have it separate?
Well, and one thing that helped the TRG a lot, which we've also seen with MS-13. Now, this wasn't to the extent of MS-13, but a lot of these people, when they come from war-torn countries, they're willing to go to a different level with the street crimes than people are used to. People are like, oh, we'll fist fight, maybe pull some knives, we'll shoot somebody every once in a while. MS-13, they're coming from third world El Salvador.
Right.
They will chase you down the street with a machete.
Right, they're like, some of these countries cut your head off in front of everybody, so
Right.
they don't give a shit.
So they're not afraid of your street fight.
Like, we think we hardcore in America, but like out there, like they're beating people, like riding on bikes. Like I just seen cops like beating fucking people for no reason, just like riding a bike. Like why are you beating that guy? They go through some shit out there.
So one of the big gangs that they not only served as an influence to their gang culture, but it became their primary rival, was a Hispanic gang called the East Side Longos. And in the late 80s and early 90s, the Cambodians violently retaliated against continued harassment, and it led to an ongoing war with the East Side Longos that spread from California to Seattle and led to the deaths of hundreds on both sides. So over time, the Tiny Rascal Gang, they abandoned being racially exclusive. So now technically any race you could be a Tiny Rascal, but it's still primarily Cambodians and other Asians. So there's a lot of Koreans and Chinese, but it's and Vietnamese.
Sounds like black gangs. I don't think I know any newer age black gang that is exclusively black. You can almost be whatever. It's whether you're down for the cause or not.
Right.
Now, because of if you're growing in a certain area and it's a predominantly black area, of course, overwhelmingly it's going to be black, but it's usually not that thing where your race is a big factor of whether you can get in or not.
So over time, they got to a point where they obviously didn't have to click up just to protect themselves on the streets. And eventually the gang moves into traditional rackets like drug trafficking, extortion, burglary, and auto theft rings.
The good stuff.
They're highly mobile, so they've expanded to Cambodian communities in Rhode Island, Lowell, Massachusetts, Virginia. They're kind of all over America. There was actually an incident in Holland, Michigan that was between the Tiny Rascal Gang and the Latin Kings.
Holland, Michigan.
Yeah, in Holland, Michigan. Latin King killed a Tiny Rascal.
No words on that one. I didn't know there were gangs in Holland, Michigan.
Well, I'm sure the dude was from Detroit.
Just was out there hiding out or some shit.
Yeah, we got Latin Kings in Detroit. So, well, we did.
There was a lot of, especially when we were younger, all the gangs in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
Currently, there's an estimated 10,000 Tiny Rascal Gang members nationwide. They're now running criminal rackets associated with the Outlaws Motorcycle Clubs and the Chinese Triad groups.
Okay, so they went
to the big guys. Yeah.
On that street peddling shit.
You know what's funny? If I was in a gang or I was a gang leader, there's only one script I would be watching, and that is the script of the mob.
Mm-hmm.
They did everything. They ran everything. Then they slowly converted to legit.
Yeah.
I don't know why in today's time you still want to be a criminal when you can do things legit. You already have the control. It's just, making some small tweaks. And don't get me wrong, when I say legit, it's with still with some quotation, some quotes around it, air quotes. For the most part, they've went legit, and so many of these
they operate in a lot of the gray area.
Yes. And so many other gangs have that opportunity, and they just continue to be on the street level. I don't get it.
Yeah, I grew up, when I was younger, I grew up in a lot of gangs, and I always just look back like, what was the point? Like, all you guys did was, you guys did drugs, you didn't do anything, just rob people, kill people. For what? You ain't improving anything, Like, where's your money going?
It's kind of dark, but one thing I guess we will have learned doing this podcast, if you're going to be a criminal, OC, organized crime is the way to go. Because like you said,
it is.
Random getting high and street fights and robberies.
Shit's dumb.
Yeah, you're just getting yourself in trouble. I'm sure.
I don't remember if I said this on this podcast before, but I remember watching a video, and it was a guy that he did some time in jail for doing like credit card fraud or something like that. He did like 4 years in jail. And so he was talking about a counterpart of his that they met, and they both were doing big things, making money in the criminal world. But the other guy was selling drugs and stuff like that. And he's talking to the guy. He's like, I'm going to make up the year. I don't remember what year it is. Why in the world would you be selling drugs in 2016? Me and you both are criminals. We make about the same amount of money. If you get caught, you may go down for the rest of your life. If I get caught, I get a max of about 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Max.
Right.
Why would you do that? That's my ideology when I see some of this stuff. It's like, listen, if I'm gonna be a criminal, I'm gonna be on the white collar side or something else where
Right.
it's like, we'll give them 5 years. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to do a day. Let me
Right.
start by saying that. But 5 years sound a lot better than 25 to life.
Mm-hmm.
That's why drugs changed the mafia, because before drugs, bootlegging, they made a ton of money, but that was, people would turn a blind eye. Politicians, police, everybody was in on that. Extortion was still, you get trouble, you do your 8 years to 10
Mhm.
years to, whatever, but you
Mhm.
shut your mouth, you come out, now you got a
Yep.
promotion, you're respected, everybody knows,
Yep.
will keep your mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as drugs started coming in, that drug time, 40 to life. And then, so what do guys do? They snitch.
Yep.
All right, that's the story of the Tiny Rascal Gang.
So say good night to the bad guy. Go on. The last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you.
So what you guys think? First time doing a side story episode?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I never even heard of the Tiny Rascals, and it looks like they're still around. So
Well, now they work with legit
Yeah.
organized crime, so
triads and shit.
Seems like an interesting story. I think it's one of those things, especially as you mentioned, it looks like they're still around. Be interesting to see, because I love to look into it a little bit more to understand what's going on, see if they made some transitions. Nowadays you never know. I mean, literally, you have people that become stars that come out of these different gangs and stuff. You're like, oh, I never knew they were affiliated with
Right.
XYZ. So
Like Snoop
interesting.
Dogg.
I mean, well,
He's on a show with Martha Stewart. You know what I'm saying? He was a crip.
listen, in California, I think it's like literally you come out of the womb and you got colors.
Pretty
You know what I
much.
mean? I don't think there's anywhere where there's more gang and gang
Yeah.
culture than California. Not in the U.S.
Well, and I think it suitingly went all the way back to Long Beach. Back to Snoop in Long
Back
Beach.
to Snoop.
Well, look, like I said, I do a lot of research. I watch a lot of outlaw stuff. So I was watching this show called Gangland, and they had a whole episode on the Tiny Rascal Gang.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of crazy. I'd never heard of a Cambodian gang, and they're like a big fucking gang.
Mhm.
And then, like a week later, watching completely different channel, completely different crime show, but they were talking about this guy that was like, that escaped prison. One of his associates that he had met in prison was this crazy guy, and they're like, and he was a reputed Tiny Rascal Gang member. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've never heard of them in my whole life, and now I've heard of them twice in the last 2 weeks. I'm covering them. And then that's one of those things where you're like, okay, which Tiny Rascal are we going to cover? None. There's no story. But you know what? Like I said, we'll just
whole
fucking
gang.
cover it as a gang, slap it out there.
And they've been around, you said, since 75?
Since 80.
It's funny you mentioned Gangland. I cannot watch Gangland. You know why I can't watch it? They make everything just sound so scary.
Yeah.
This is the problem with scary stuff. It is scary if you're not there.
Right.
But when you're in the midst of certain things, and don't get me wrong, I'm still saying it's bad. Same reason why I don't watch the news. If I would watch the news, I would never go outside. Everybody's
Right.
out to kill you. Every cop that pulls me over is going to shoot me. Like, the news is too bad. I want to go about my life with a peace of mind. Listen, as you know, I've been really contemplating making a move toward the Southwest. You watch Gangland, especially you mentioned like the MS-13 earlier and stuff like that. Listen, I would never step foot in Arizona, like none of those places. Like, listen, as soon as you come, they're gonna chop your head off. Like, wait a minute, no, I don't want to go. Yeah, I can't.
Every
watch
time
it.
it
Every
happens.
time.
Every time, without fail. My kids are older now, but when my kids were young, I'd rather watch a rated R movie around my kids than the news. You watch the news and it's a lot of rape and choke their baby and shit. I don't want to have that conversation. Whatever. You accidentally see a couple titties on TV. I could deal with that. It's an awkward
Boobies.
moment. We all move on.
Boobies.
All right. So this is Say Hello to the Bad Guy. Thanks for coming and thanks for listening.